Good evening. We're going to call the meeting for Akron City Council to order at this time. Our clerk will read the roll.
Boys,
Here.
Connor, Davis, DeShazier,
Present.
Fusco,
Present. Aye.
Garrett,
Present.
Hannah,
Here.
Kamer,
Aye.
Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Amobian,
Here.
Somerville.
Aye.
All members are present.
For those who voluntarily wish to do so, will you please stand at this time as we are led in prayer by William Reynolds. Immediately following our prayer, I'm going to ask if Councilwoman Davis will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Considering what happened this week, and I thought this prayer was very suiting. Lord, make us, especially me and these leaders and officials, instruments of your peace. Where there is hatred, let your love increase. Lord, make us instruments of your peace. Halls of pride and prejudice shall cease when we are your instruments of your peace. Where there is hatred, we will show love. Where there is injury, we will never judge. Where there is striving, we will speak his peace. Where there is blindness, we will pray for sight. Where there is darkness, we will shine his light. Where there is poverty, we will give. Where there is discourse and disagreements, we will listen and mediate. Where there is racism, we will free minds. Where there is sadness, we will bear their grief. To those crying for relief, we will be instruments of peace. Now, O Lord, bless and protect this meeting, the city, officials, and all those involved in or affected by the decisions made at this meeting. Help all the decisions made be right and glorious in your eyes. In the name of our Savior, Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The minutes from our previously held meeting have been provided. Are there any additions or corrections?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it.
The motion to approve the minutes passes 12-0.
We'll now move to our public comment period. I'm going to ask all those who signed up to participate if you'll please stand at this time so that you may be sworn in by our clerk.
Could you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth? If so, please say, I do. I do. Thank you.
I do.
You're just going to ask when you hear your name that you please approach the podium, and you will have 3 minutes to speak to this body. We're going to begin with Pastor Gregory Harrison.
Good evening, Council. Good evening. I wanted to share, I watched the committee meeting this afternoon and want to talk about trust and unintended consequences. A few years ago, now Mayor Mallett and I were discussing body-worn camera, and he had sponsored a legislation for body-worn camera. I told him there was some unintended consequences to that legislation, that he needed to move slow, and he did not move slow. As a result of that legislation, body-worn camera footage is being released, but there is no safety to that. The law department does not have enough people to do that, so that is now released at the police department. My son was murdered May 11th. Body-worn camera footage was released. My son is laying on the ground in his underwear. I understand that footage is being released, but the interview of the suspect was released. The interview of the witness was released. How can we tell citizens that we will have confidential information when you're releasing that? To date, 560,000 views of that video. Issue 10, I talked with Mayor Mallett about issue 10. Told him to move slow because there's some unintended consequences to issue 10. There were some unintended consequences that this thing will not come to fruition for maybe 3 years because you still have to negotiate. You still have to do things, and people are going to believe that this thing is just going to happen. He moved forward with it. And here we are at 2.5 years, and it's not in place. Diversity starts at the bottom, not at the top. This charter amendment does nothing to further diversity in the Akron Police Department, and it is dangerous because it is arbitrary. There's 3 branches of government because there's a check and power. That charter amendment is very, very dangerous. Maybe 1, maybe 2, maybe 4 people will get promoted. But what happens 3, 4, 5 years from now? Every police department in this country is having problems recruiting. Every police department in this country is having problems retaining leadership. It is dangerous to say you can fix one thing by getting rid of something. I'm just asking the council to move slow on that, to give people a chance to weigh in, because it is dangerous. And if you talk to some of the legacy officers, some of the officers the city of Akron has been sued since 1968 about police and fire promotions. Ask some of those guys, is this a wise decision? If this was a quick fix, it would have been done. The city has spent millions of dollars. If this fix was what is needed, they would have been done it. I'm asking you to move slow, not to pass this charter amendment. Give us some time to really look at this thing and come together with this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Harrison. Casey Koza? Is Casey here with us? Matthew?
Hello. I'm here to speak about the pending acquisition of Summa Health by the venture capital firm General Catalyst. If completed, this would transform the nonprofit Summa into a for-profit hospital. My argument is that the people of Akron should oppose the privatization of our main health provider. My reasoning is as follows. 1, the privatization of Summa would lower the quality and raise the cost of healthcare for the people of Akron. And 2, that it would cede control of our main health provider to a corporation with no vested interest in Akron besides profiting off of us. To my first point, we all know that any private firm must profit. And in the context of a hospital, profit means staff reductions, intensive working hours, less services offered, premature discharges, higher cost for patients, and the targeting of a wealthier clientele, since private insurance offers higher reimbursement rates than Medicaid. This is based on a trove of empirical investigations into the consequences of nonprofit hospital privatizations. For instance, a 2024 paper published by the leading science journal Lancet found that privatized hospitals tended to search for more financial efficiencies by targeting more profitable patients and by reducing the levels of staffing. This paper concludes with, quote, "No studies in this review found that increased privatization corresponded with better health outcomes for patients." To my second point, why should we entrust the health of our community to a venture capital firm with no attachment to Akron except what it can squeeze out of us for their own profit? The plan to convert our largest health provider into a for-profit clinic was not a decision the people of Akron were able to vote on, and it has profound consequences for all of us. General Catalyst has no interest in Akron besides making money off of us. It will gamble with our health services to find any avenue for profit. And the moment that well runs dry, they'll drop us. They'll drop their asset, our collective health, and leave us to deal with the fallout. In sum, do not remain complicit in letting our community's health be sold out. We know many in Akron oppose this acquisition, including numerous Summa workers. Will you stand with the people of Akron, or will you stand with the vultures who will ravage our health care for their benefit? Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew, for sharing. Sharon?
Good evening. My name is Sharon, and I am an Akron resident and an Akron healthcare worker. I'm here to speak against the privatization of Summa. A 2024 medical paper by The Lancet on the effects of healthcare privatization reveals that hospitals converting from public to private ownership status tended to make higher profits but only by the selective intake of patients, aka wealthier patients, and by the reduction to staff numbers, aka cutting jobs. The paper also found that increases in privatization corresponded with worse health outcomes for patients. Basically, when a hospital goes from a nonprofit status to a for-profit status, their priorities shift. It's in the name, for-profit. And so, General Catalyst would be shifting SUMA's priorities from providing high-quality, accessible patient care to maximizing profits for its owners. And how does one maximize profits? By cutting costs, raising prices, hiring less healthcare workers, firing the existing healthcare workers, and by exhausting the already overworked hospital staff. Getting access to good healthcare is already difficult as is for many of our Akron residents, but add in the mix that the largest nonprofit hospital in Akron will become privatized, it would make healthcare both unaffordable and unsafe. The hospital's goal will not be to treat the patient's condition and ensure their health, but to make them pay a highly expensive bill to profit the owners. It will focus on getting you in quick and rushing you out even quicker. It will pressure the hospital staff to make decisions that put cost-cutting measures or revenue-generating strategies at the expense of patient well-being. And our healthcare providers also depend on the nonprofit status. If SUMA converts to a for-profit hospital, many of our 8,500 healthcare workers would be losing their federal student loan forgiveness since they would no longer be employed by a nonprofit. Our doctors, nurses, and other hospital staff will not be incentivized to stay in SUMA if they have to worry about paying for their student loans that often reach hundreds of thousands. Unfortunately, there is a history of private equity firms taking over and restricting hospitals at the expense of both patients and healthcare providers. Let's not make that mistake now. Do not sell SUMA to a venture capital firm. SUMA is Akron's largest employer, and we, the people of Akron, cannot afford to have our healthcare worsened by a for-profit corporation.
Thank you, Sharon. William Reynolds.
Early American writer Thomas Paine said, "These are times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from the service of their country, but he that stands it now deserves the love and thanks of men and women." This past Saturday at approximately 6:30 p.m., I turned on the TV just as the news of an attempted assassination of former president and Republican candidate Donald Trump. As I watched this breaking news throughout the rest of the evening into the early hours of Sunday morning, I thought to myself, I really don't like Donald Trump, and I really don't want him elected into the most powerful seat in the world again. But to shoot at him and others and try to kill him is horrible. President Joe Biden said it best. An assassination attempt is contrary to everything we stand for as a nation. It's not who we are as a nation, and we cannot allow this to happen. Unity is the most elusive goal of all, but nothing is more important than that right now. One of my favorite bands, Sidewalk Prophets, said, "This country is not perfect, but the beauty of this country is that it has always strived to be better." So how do we strive to be better in the face of this moment? A moment of immense polarization, fear, and hate. As a nation, left, right, middle, our pride needs to be squelched and our rhetoric needs to tone down. We are quick to point fingers and negligent to examine our own hearts. By God's design, we are a vast and diverse world. We are different people with different experiences from different places held together by the great gift of the divine, DNA. In Akron, the racial and political divide was glaringly obvious with the pathetic Juneteenth debacle. On June 10th, I stood up here and I tried to educate people on the importance of Juneteenth. Nobody, not a single one of you, said anything about any of your concerns then. I think that it is fair to be concerned about safety after a mass shooting in our city. My biggest issue with the whole situation was twofold. Firstly, you waited until last minute to bring up your concerns. Secondly, and probably more concerning, is that you treat citizens like they're stupid and you continually talk out of both sides of your mouth. In Matthew 5:37, it says, "Let your yes be yes and let your no be no. Anything else is just evilness." The Declaration of Independence starts with, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that all are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." These are the things that we as citizens really want. We want to live life. We want liberty, which is a state of being free within society from oppressive restrictions imposed by authorities.
William, I'm going to let you just wrap it up. Okay?
One's way of thinking, living behavior, or political views, and the pursuit of happiness. This is what we as citizens really want.
William, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Reverend John Beatty.
Madam President and members of the council, we live in crazy times. It seems to be our country is having a nervous breakdown. After the attempted assassination of former President Trump, I had a close neighbor who was opposed to the re-election of Trump call my wife and ask if she thought the attempted assassination was staged. Later, my granddaughter, who wishes she was old enough to vote for RFK, said she thought the attempted assassination was staged. This morning, my neighbor, who always wears a pistol in plain sight, goes to target practice every day, flies a drone over his neighbor's houses, and keeps watch over the Akron Police Headquarters, cusses every time he speaks with four-letter words, is now going to church, and is the most extreme supporter of former Trump, of Trump. He says the attempted assassination was a staged attempt to wake the nation up for what is going to happen in 2025. Hold on to your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy ride. While we were watching the attempted assassination on TV live, The Lancet, already mentioned, a British scientific journal, has estimated 185,000 Palestinians have been killed by the Israeli Defense Force with our U.S. bombs, tanks, missiles, and planes. This news has been totally ignored by our mainstream media while we watched a deranged man who has just been shot spew hate from gritted teeth, shouting, "Fight, fight, fight!" What is really scary is that the weapon of war that Thomas Craftsman Crooks used was totally legal, bought by his dad. Thomas was only 20 years old. He looks like an angel. Worked in a nursing care facility with no problems. Voted Republican in his last election. And yet J.D. Vance, Trump's pick for his vice president today, has just announced that the attempted assassination was President Biden's fault. How's that for lowering the temperature? Stay tuned. We are the only nation whose worst, most deadly epidemic for children is guns. And yet our Summit County Council continues to make our Akron streets unsafe with guns, some of which are bought at the frequent gun shows at our tax-supported county fairgrounds. Please send a resolution to them, urging them to forbid the sale of weapons of war at our county fairgrounds. Do you know that there are more guns owned by American citizens than there are American citizens? Help stop the war on ourselves. Free Palestine. Save the children of Gaza. Save the children of America.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Beatty, for sharing. Thank you. We do have two individuals who are joining us virtually. Janos, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, great.
Evening, Council. As of today, it has been 282 days of the Gaza genocide and 76 years of Nakba and occupation. 186,000 Palestinians lie dead as per the Lancet report. One of those deaths was Hind Rajab. On January 29th, 2024, 6-year-old Hind Rajab and her family were fleeing Gaza City when an Israeli tank caught them at a gas station. It hurled 355 shots at the car containing the family from a distance of less than 75 feet. As her family lay dead around her, including her cousin Leanne, she sobbed into the phone to the Palestinian Red Crescent. Among her words came 2 sentences of desperation. I'm scared of the dark. Come get me. According to her mother, Wissam Hamada, her voice faded at 7 p.m. as the Red Crescent scrambled a rescue team that went along route coordinated with the IOF. A tank shell blew apart the ambulance, killing Yusuf Zaino and Ahmed al-Madoun. Hind died waiting for rescuers scared of the dark. This information came from Al Jazeera through their recent documentary, The Night Won't End. They did their investigation with the aid of 2 investigative nonprofits, Forensic Architecture and Earshot. I'd like to dedicate this poem to Hind Rajab. 355 shots from a tank. Pat, pat, pat. 355 shots from a tank. Their lives ended like that. 355 shots from a tank. Bleeding, she cried into the phone. 355 shots from a tank. Surrounded by family, yet all alone. 355 shots from a tank. I'm scared of the dark. Come get me. 355 shots from a tank. The enemy shell killed with glee. 355 shots from a tank. And shots from a tank. Never allowed to live, a victim of hatred because of 355 shots from a tank. You are allowing Summa Hospital, Akron's largest employer and health provider, to be acquired by General Catalyst, a venture capital firm linked to weapons manufacturing and Israel. Do not tie a medical institution to genocide, apartheid, and war. Do not tie Akron's largest employer to the death of a 6-year-old girl. Cut your ties with Kiryat Akron as well. The city that calls for a ceasefire has no room for apartheid. Restore public comments while you're at it as well, you racist bastards. Free Palestine.
Thank you, Janos, for sharing. Alyssa Figueroa, are you online with us?
I am.
Okay, great.
All right. Apologies ahead of time. My baby's being a baby. So I wanted to speak about Summa. I am also, as some of you know, that we've spoken before, I'm a nurse. I work here in Akron. I've been a nurse for 10 years. And I actually moved from for-profit healthcare setting to nonprofit healthcare setting for a reason. In the for-profit healthcare setting, all of the things that everyone has described are accurate. Skeleton staffing because the bottom line is what matters. Cutting costs every possible way that we can. I think about all the things that I've been told that HATCO says they're going to do, and it just seems kind of too good to be true. Either that or they think that we're stupid. There's no magic solution that, people have thought of that's going to fix healthcare that we haven't thought of before. It doesn't make any sense to me. The math doesn't add up. And I don't know what actually you all can do. That's not my area of expertise as far as, if council has any way to, put a pause on this, fully stop it. If this is something that, it's more you guys using your position of power to maybe leverage people who can do something, because I recognize that there's state regulatory conditions on this deal, and that those are pending. But I'm saying, as someone who's at the bedside every single day, I come home every morning rather, because I work night shift, go straight to my basement, strip off all of my nasty scrubs that are covered in I don't know what, because I don't want her to get whatever it is I'm bringing home with me. We're still dealing with COVID. We're always dealing with way too many patients per nurse. If it would get worse, it's just going to exacerbate all of the staffing issues we're already having. It's going to make all of the other problems we're having worse as well. The pandemic really gutted a lot of healthcare settings. It has completely changed it. It's not at all how it used to be, 10 years ago when I started. But we can't do anything to make it worse. I recognize that there are financial constraints that Summa is facing, but I just do not think that this is a good solution. All of the things that were mentioned as well about what the employees would be facing, losing the PSLF. I've spoken with physicians that they have $200,000 in student loans. They literally cannot afford to continue to work at Summa if they don't get that student loan forgiveness. And there's no raise that staff could receive that's going to make that better or offset those costs, because that's a debt that follows you for so long and the interest rate is so high. So I'm happy to, speak with folks. I can't come to the meeting on Thursday, but I just really want to impress upon you guys, like, this is not, it's not what you think it is, truly, from my perspective as a healthcare expert. Thank you.
Lisa, thank you so much for sharing. That concludes our public comment period. We want to thank all of those who have participated. We're going to continue with our agenda. Before all of you is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it.
The consent agenda passes 12-0.
We'll now move to old business rules. Councilman McKittrick.
The wish of the committee is continued time, please.
Thank you. Time will be granted. Planning and Economic Development, Councilman Fusco.
Yes, thank you. The wishes of the committee is to file item number 11. The explanation is this is a White Pond facility that was proposed for medical marijuana dispensary. It's been withdrawn by the petitioners. So file 11, then time on 12 through and including 15, file 16 and 17. Those are the two public hearings that we had heard earlier today and resolved. And then finally, time on 18 through and including 24. And file 25, that's the actual petition for the medical marijuana facility on White Pond. So with that, we would ask for time on the balance of the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Public Service, Councilman Kamer.
Time, please.
Thank you. Time will be granted. That concludes our old business. We'll now move into new legislation.
Item number 1, offered by Fusco, ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a loan agreement or agreements with the Northeast Ohio Area-Wide Coordinating Agency's Vibrant NEO Brownfields Revolving Loan Fund for asbestos abatement at 1200 Firestone Parkway, authorizing payment therefore and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco.
Consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 2, offered by Fusco, ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a lease agreement with the Legal Defender's Office of Summit County, Ohio, Inc. for lease of approximately 1,246 square feet of office property at the Akron Municipal Court Building, Oliver O. Kasich Building, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco.
Refer.
This item will be referred.
Item number 3, offered by McKittrick, ordinance authorizing the Director of Law to enter into a contract with the Summit County Public Defender Commission to provide legal services for indigent defendants in Akron Municipal Court in accordance with the requirements of the Constitution of the United States with respect to the provision of legal representation to indigent defendants and declaring an emergency.
Councilman McKittrick.
The committee's report is favorable, and we are asking for suspension of the rules.
Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
This is a year-to-year contract that we have for our public defenders, and we are trying to get this passed this evening because they've been working without this contract since the beginning of the year, so we'll be able to get them paid and asking for passage.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it.
This ordinance passes 12-0. Item number 4, offered by Kamer and McKittrick, resolution opposing and objecting to the renewal application of Andy's in Firestone Park, LLC, 1751 South Main Street, Akron, Ohio, 44301, for Class D5 and D6 liquor permits 0211611, pending before the Division of Liquor Control and declaring an emergency.
Councilman McKittrick.
The committee's report is also favorable, and we are asking for suspension of the rules.
Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
We had a good representation from our chief prosecutor, Mr. Morgan, today. This property and business has been a nuisance in the neighborhood for quite some time. I would like to yield to Councilman Kamer as he spoke in regard to this being in his ward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and President Somerville. Yeah, this is a business. We've actually been here before where we brought in a resolution to object to the liquor license, and we're going to continue to move forward. The business continues to be a nuisance, and it's pouring into the neighborhood. We have a church that's approximately about, these are my numbers, about 100 yards from the location. And, the neighbors are upset. They want some action. They want some changes done. So with that, I'm asking for passage, and I'm asking if council as a whole can support this. So I'll make that motion for council as a whole. Hopefully we can get a second. Thank you.
Okay,
I'll second that.
very good. So we do have a motion on the floor, and we do have a second. Councilman Fusco, did you have your hand up? Okay, all is well. So the motion on the floor.
I did. I was going to second. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We do have a motion and a second for council as a whole. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
This resolution passes 12-0.
That concludes our new legislation for this evening. We'll now move into committee assignments. Rules, Councilman McKittrick.
2 p.m.
Public Safety, Councilman McKittrick.
2:15.
Budget and Finance, Councilman Lombardo.
3 p.m.
Parks and Recreation, Councilwoman Connor. Planning and Economic Development, Councilman Fusco.
1,
Housing and Neighborhood Assistance, Councilman Fusco.
3:15.
Public Service, Councilman Kamer.
2 p.m., please.
Health and Social Services, Councilwoman Amobian.
2:30.
Is there anything else coming before council at this time? Seeing none, is there a motion for adjournment? There's a motion. If there are no objections, meeting adjourned.
This concludes the live broadcast of Akron City Council. Margot Somerville, President of Council, presiding.